everyone, and welcome to another video of Block by Block, where today we're going to be talking about terraforming. Slight disclaimer, this is a very simple way of how I terraform in Minecraft, so heads up, I don't really change that much from the original terrain generation, but this is just how I do it and how I try to make it better. So that aside, let's go on to the first step of terraforming, which for me is fixing the terrain. So I think this is perfect to start with. Here's a tiny list of the things that I like to go through. We're gonna go through them one by one. So first thing on the list, I want to fix all the holes that I see. Just fill these in how you usually would. I also like to take the time just to place a couple torches. I find it very annoying in survival when I can hear a mob somewhere, but I don't know where it's coming from. It's usually from a cave that's hidden underneath. So just a couple torches doesn't hurt. Right now, I'm not worrying about how it looks. I'm just filling it up. Now we're gonna level a bunch of the weird patches. By that, I mean like these types of blocks that kind of just looks like an enderman just made a mess. Just leveling things out that don't really need to be there. Like this entire patch right here, I feel like I can get rid of it just to free up a bunch of space here in general. Doing this just kind of cleans everything up, getting rid of those like unnecessary quirks that the Minecraft terrain generation does, and also just kind of prepares everything so you can build on top of it. This way you can still work with the terrain and not accidentally make it into a super flat world. Next on the list is to fix the layer lines. By that, I just mean the lines that the dirt layers create. So over here, this is one line, this is another line, this one's another line, and so on. So over here from the top, you can already tell it's very jagged, and what you're looking for is to just make a smooth curve, and I achieve this just by getting rid and adding blocks as I go. I literally just grab some dirt and just add a few blocks little by little until I reach something that looks a little bit smoother. A little life hack is just to go into F5 mode. My FOB is already quite high, so the higher the more that I can see from the sides, and this way you don't have to keep piling up to see how it looks like from afar. So yeah, little life hack, I do this all the time. Like this corner right here, I feel like it's very repetitive. So what I'm gonna do is just get rid of some blocks, look at it from afar, and even that just looks much better than what it did before. Over on this side, it feels very straight. So I can just fill this in a little bit, look at it from afar, and that looks way better. And with that, I just repeat the same process for the entire area that I want. So from the top view, you can really tell what I'm doing. I'm really just softening out a lot of those straight edges that I see. I also try to get rid of some of the repeating patterns, and the regular terrain generation does have a lot of those. You just want everything to have like a smooth transition into each other, but it's a lot of going back and forth, just seeing what you like, what you don't like, adding and then getting rid of blocks. But the end result does look a lot cleaner, and this is what I usually strive for just when I'm generally building. And this way I still find that it looks quite vanilla, but still making it look a lot better than what it looked like originally. So this is done, and now for my favorite part, which is decorating. For decorating, these are my go-to. I just feel like these fit most biomes, but like obviously depending on where your base is. Maybe you live in a taiga and you want to use a little bit more podzol, less moss. Or maybe you live in a savanna and you want to use podzol at all, but you want to use a lot of coarse dirt. Or you can just switch it up completely. Like if you live in a desert, I usually go for sandstone or birch. I mean, it's Minecraft, you can really do whatever you want. And for leaves, these are always the ones that I gravitate towards. The only reason being is because azalea leaves have this flower version, which I think looks very pretty. And no other leaf type has a flower version like azaleas do. But I do like to switch it up every once in a while depending on the biome that I'm building. But yeah, this is totally up to you. Now for decoration, I just went really simple for the sake of the video. I always like to include paths wherever I go. It's just such a simple way to make an area just look a little bit better. I always add trees. Even if you tear down an entire forest, you should always add the trees back once you're finished building and everything. You can see this one. This is just a regular oak tree. Literally the only thing that I added was a stair, a slab, and a trapdoor just to make the roots of the tree. Also for the base of the tree, I love using the coarse dirt and the podzol just a little bit around the trunk, just because IRL like a tree has dirt near the roots, so I'm just trying to emulate that. For the leaves, I love placing them to like contour the path. Also rocks, I really like placing rocks everywhere. This one's pretty simple. I just used a stone block in the middle, and in whichever order that you like, I just place a stone stair and a stone slab, and then also some stone buttons just to create little pebbles. And then also don't forget about flowers. They added a bunch of new ones recently. They added the wildflowers, firefly bushes, and that's pretty much all that I did for that little area that we fixed. But I do have a few more examples. So this one is pretty much the same design that I already did. I did this for a village revamp. It was just simple but effective, you know what I mean? And then I also have this one for like cherry blossom biomes. And if you're wondering how I place a sugarcane, some of the cherry leaves have water underneath. It's a little neat trick that I like to do. This next one, I did it for when the Pale Garden came out. And this is one of the only times where I like considered to like use that coral fence for like a build. And then finally, this mushroom house. I kind of imagined that this will be inside a dark forest. Of course, felt like a little bit more magical, so I added some mushrooms everywhere. But yeah, that's just a few examples that I wanted to show you. Okay, so we fixed the terrain. I think it's time to make some cliffs. So I found a pretty good mountainside. You can do this technique with whatever size, whatever height. I feel like it works really well. So to start with, I'm gonna grab some grass. I'm also gonna grab some stone. And while I'm at it, I'm also gonna grab some stone stairs and a few stone slabs. And now we can get started. For the cliff, I like to start out by making the outline first. I'm literally just connecting two dots together, not really paying attention to the shape yet. This is more like to mark how big the cliff is going to be. And then once I'm happy with the size, I do go back and fix some of the edges, just how I mentioned in the first section of the video. Just kind of make sure that all the curves are smooth, and I get rid of that like repetitive pattern there on the side. I go back and forth, just getting rid of blocks, adding until I reach something that I like. And once I'm happy with the shape, I fill it in at the top. Now underneath, this is where the cliff is going to be. So with some stone, I go along the entire edge of the outline that we made. Literally just a straight line up and down, just making sure that it reaches all the way to the bottom. And I know it looks ugly now, but trust the process. So once that's done, I get rid of any dirt at the bottom just so the stone is flush to the floor. With some dirt, I like to place, mainly in the corners as you can tell, I like to place some dirt going up and down just to really mess up that sharp edge. I try not to go too overboard, especially with smaller cliffs since it can be a little bit too much sometimes. And then here at the top where it's really flat, I try to make it blend a little bit more into the mountain. So in this case, I just extended the mountain a little bit just so it's not so obvious that we just made like an entire platform out of dirt. I like to base it off the regular terrain generation that Minecraft does. I swear we're almost done. So what I do is just break some of the corners of the cliff and bring it back a single block. I don't do this with every corner, but I do like most of them just to add a little bit more shape. You can see I'm randomizing the heights as well just to make it look a little bit more rough. If you look at a natural terrain generated cliff in Minecraft, you can kind of tell that the style is similar to that, but to really drive in that vanilla plus style that I tend to go for, I grab the stone stairs and slabs and place those at the bottom just to blend out the cliff with the floor. And then also some upside down stairs on those little edges that we already created. I sometimes also like to place slabs underneath the dirt that we place at the top, and like bare bones. So this is literally all that I do for a cliff. Everything else is going to depend on how you want to decorate it. I used andesite to texturize the side of the cliff. This is just a really simple example of what I usually do to decorate a cliff. Maybe for like a plains biome or a forest, I really like adding bushes going and like trickling down a little bit. And I also make sure that all the decoration that I add on the top is also at the bottom just to really tie everything in. But there you go. We are all done with the cliff. And I do have a few examples that I want to show you. So this is the first example that I have. The vibe for this cliff is more on the taiga / mega taiga. Also the custom trees do make it look a lot better, to be honest. But those two cliffs that you see are made using that exact same technique that I showed you. I even went a little step further and added that massive staircase on the side. So it just makes the entire thing feel a little bit more unique. And then this set of waterfalls, believe it or not, is the same technique. Instead of using dirt at the top, I kept it all stone because it was more like a stony set of waterfalls. In this case, I made 4 cliffs. And since this one's a waterfall, instead of filling it up with dirt, I left more of a hole and filled it in with water. And obviously the decorations are going to be different since there's water nearby. I added shrubs just because there's water, so more things are going to grow naturally. And then I also have a little close-up here at the top. So yeah, same technique, just very different ways of decorating it. Now that I showed you this waterfall, I think this is a perfect segue for the next topic, which is terraforming bodies of water. So this first one is a lake. With all bodies of water, I start off by cleaning up the lines a little bit. This lake was really shallow. I felt like it looked too weird. I just started making a bunch of layers, kind of matching the same shape of the outer edge of the lake. And you're probably seeing like a third of the entire lake. So it was pretty big. I needed that depth to match the rest of the lake, so it was another excuse just to make that part deeper. I ended up going 4 layers deep, and actually maybe, I don't know, controversial opinion, I don't really like changing the blocks at the bottom of lakes, like all the clay and the gravel and stuff. I always leave it. I don't think it looks that bad. So in this clip, I don't really change anything, but as I dig deeper, the less layers of sand and gravel there's going to be. So at the end of it, it was mainly just dirt, to be honest. But yeah, I don't really change it. I mean, you can change it. I would probably use like coarse dirt or something, or like other brown blocks to add some texture. Then once I'm happy with the layers, I go in with some mossy cobblestone slabs, and I place those only on the edges. And you can see not every single edge. I do leave some of them just empty. And then I also do plant a bunch of seagrass using bone meal, but I do get rid of a lot of the density because using bone meal creates like really solid patches of seagrass, and I don't like how it looks. So I just place a bone meal and then shear it out a little bit. And then for lakes, the only things that I like to add at the bottom, just larger rocks dotted around. In this case, I just use stone and mossy cobblestone, and I just added a couple on those open areas of the lake. Now for the shoreline, I feel like it's fairly easy to do. I like to to go in with some podzol, and I like to keep it very close to the water. And then I go in with some coarse dirt, mainly to blend the grass with the podzol. And the further away from the water, the sheerer the layer of coarse dirt is going to be. And then at the end, on the very outer edge, I add some moss just to create a little bit more variation in the grass. And for the plants, I keep it quite simple. Some shrubs with some spruce, and in this case, I was in a birch biome, so I used birch leaves. And that was pretty much it for the grassy part. But the section with sand, I like to go in with some stripped birch logs to make it look like wet sand. I also mix in some birch planks, some sandstone on the outer edges, and then just some dead shrubs and bushes to decorate, and that was it. This next one was for a river, and I started off the same. I just fixed a line at the edge a little bit, and this time I did do something a little bit different. So I started off with coarse dirt along the edges, and then brown powdered concrete, but just make sure that it doesn't touch water, otherwise it's going to turn into concrete. Then I mixed in some moss, and on the very outer edge, I added green powdered concrete. I really like how it looks. I kind of just ignore the fact that there was sand there. And then for river specifically, I like adding bigger rocks along the shore, some firefly bushes, a bunch of different grass types, flowers, and also just some sugarcane in different heights. And then finally, I'm starting off from scratch. The shape was already naturally generated. I just fixed it up a little and then made it deeper. And for ponds, this is where I really like to go hard with the decorating. So on the outer edges and also on the inside, I go in with some coarse dirt and some moss, and then I just fill it in as usual. And again with some mossy cobblestone stairs, I place those all around the edges, and then also some mossy cobblestone walls, just a couple of them just like sticking out. I like how it looks. And then this is a little close-up of everything I decorated. So seagrass, I like to place in some pickles, more like in little clusters of pickles. I place in lily pads, a bunch of rocks everywhere. I also go crazy with all the plants that I place. So I make some shrubs with the azalea leaves. I love placing small drip leaves. Oh, I also like placing extinguished campfires with some spruce trapdoors to make it look like driftwood. Again, I go in with some sugarcane, a bunch of different types of flowers. And then I forgot, but I will probably put in some fish too. And then finally, I do have a couple of examples. This one kind of debatable if it counts as like water terraforming, but this is a hot springs that I did. But I wanted to show you this more like as an idea for like other types of bodies of water that you might want to do. So like a hot spring like this one, or maybe like a harbor, a moat, a swamp, a reservoir, a dam. It's just really so many things that you can do. And then this one's also a pond, but I went in a little bit harder with the decorations. So it has a little waterfall, some stepping stones to get across. So I really wanted it to seem overgrown, so I made custom trees for it, and also cattails. I really like how they look. It's just green stained glass at the bottom, glass panes by the way, and then a brown candle on top. And then this one's like another river. It has like a crossing area with some big drip leaves and some lily pads. And then those pink things are supposed to be lotus flowers, but it's a waterlogged warp trapdoor with the pink coral fans on top to make like the lotus flower. But in general, you can see the bottom of the river. I left it pretty much the same. I really only added some pickles. And then final thing I want to talk about is pathways. And for pathways specifically, I like decorating them according to the biome that I'm building in. So luckily, I have a bunch of examples for you. And you know, I just said the thing about the biomes, but this one's not biome specific. I just really like how this one looks. And for the main pathway itself, I use bricks and granite. And then I have this one. This one's my go-to. It's more for like plain biomes. It's just very simple and flexible. I feel like it fits in most places in the game. And for this one, it's just path blocks, then moss and coarse dirt on the outer edges. This one is for a cave, so for all those people that like to build underground. So I use stone bricks, mossy cobblestone, and then moss on the outer edges. I made this one for the dark oak forest. So the path is just podzol and coarse dirt, and then just some fake mushrooms with an end rod and a mushroom block. This one's for the desert. I mainly use path blocks and birch planks. I made sure to use the dead bush and the, I don't know what the other one's called, the new one, dead shrub I think, I don't remember. And then I had the pink candles on top before they added the cactus flower, but I just kept both in so you can decide which one looks better. This one's for the cherry biome. The blocks that I used were stripped cherry logs. Then I think that one's like slightly exposed copper or like something like that, or like weathered. I think it's weathered copper. Some packed mud, and then that coarse dirt is specifically because I wanted to place those pink petals. Really weird combo of blocks, but I feel like it works really well. And this one's for the jungle. So the blocks is just regular terracotta, some brown powder concrete, jungle planks, and then just some podzol on the outer edges. This one's for the pale garden. I used calcite, pale oak planks, and then the pumpkins, some of them are jack-o'-lantern just to light up the space, and they have a pickle on top for this time. And then I have this one for the deep dark. God, these are all new blocks. I don't really know the name of them, but I think the name of it is really just skulk blocks. The blue one is warped wart block. That's a mouthful. And then it has like the skulk veins on top. Very random, but in case your base it's in a deep dark biome, there you go. This one is for the mangrove swamp. I used mud and tile deep slate, and then instead of leaves, those are mangrove roots. I just really thought they fit better, so that's why they're there. Then this one's for the spruce biome. Is like very simple still. So path blocks, coarse dirt, and podzol Just be careful with the soup-berry bushes. And then I just had to include a pathway for the nether. So I used cobble deep slate for this one, the top side of basalt, blackstone, and then the crimson nylium. But I think if you switch it with the blue one, I think it still fits. This one I feel like it fits still in like the cherry grove, but it was meant more like a Japanese style pathway. So I used stone and andesite to create that pattern on the floor. It's just stairs along the outer edge. I really like this one. This is for the Badlands. So coarse dirt, brown powder concrete, packed mud, the mangrove roots really fit here as like dead bushes. Then finally, I think this one's the last one. For snowy biomes, I used stone, andesite, and gravel. And then I just made some little piles of snow using the snow layers and then like a little glacier layer on the side. So those were just a few ideas that I wanted to show you. But to actually make the pathways, this is how I make one in a flat area. So even though it's a straight line across, I don't actually make it a straight line. You can see I add the tiniest little curve to it. I grab my main block, in this case is just path blocks, and I messily place it in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just make sure that everything is connected in one way or another. And I leave some gaps mainly on the outer edges so I can place in some coarse dirt and moss. And then I go back on the outside where I didn't dig in and make it a little bit messy just so the path itself is not only on the 3 wide gap that we made, but that's just a basic process of me making the pathway. I want to show you how I make one that's not straight across in a flat area. So I start off by making 2 markings just so I know where the path is going to go. And then what I do is walk from one end to the other, holding right click so I make pathways underneath me as I walk through. And that just creates the basic shape of the pathway. Then I go back and make it wider. Then I don't know why I went with coarse dirt at that moment, but okay. But to actually make the way up, I like to use slabs the most. Most of the areas where I place the slabs fit very nicely in between the dirt. The 3rd layer of dirt was very close to the edge of the 2nd layer, so I got rid of some of the blocks to push it back a little, and that's where I placed the new slabs. It just looked a little bit awkward how it pushed further out that way. So breaking some dirt, pushing it further back also makes the height difference a little bit more gradual. And then I just go back and check if it's easy for me to go up and down. And if I bump into any dirt, I get rid of it. But this next one is a little bit harder since it's a lot steeper. But even though it's steeper, I still do a similar process to the one before. So not always, but the steeper, the windier the path is going to be. Just kind of base it off of these types of pictures. So I try to translate that to Minecraft a little bit. And since this one is a little bit windier, I do 3 markers and kind of practice where I'm going to walk on just to make sure that I really connect everything properly. And again, to connect it, I just look straight down, hold right click, and I don't really pay attention to the shape yet. I just really want to connect them first, and then on the second pass is where I make it look a little bit better. So I make it wider and then fix the shape a little, and then I do the same technique to make the way up and just completely ignore the fact that I'm getting rid of part of the path. The priority here is the slabs, not really how the shape of the path is going to be. So you can see me getting rid of a lot of dirt and pushing back the pathway. So between each slab section, there's at least 1 block of dirt in between, and that just makes the way up a little bit easier. Once I'm happy with the slabs, I go up and down a couple times just to make sure that the pathway is easy to go up to. I get rid of some of that extra dirt, otherwise when I go up I would hit myself against it. You can see me just testing it there. So that was the hardest part. Everything else is just decorating after that. I really hope this technique makes it a little bit easier because it does take practice, but after a while I feel like you learn to recognize some of the patterns in the terrain generation, so it just gets easier and easier to fix. So that's everything that I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next video.